Hi guys, and welcome to the final part of this tutorial series, the final part, and that is part 4, and that is making our diagrams at the end. So that's just overlaying our kind of final bits of artsy fartsiness and annotation and whatever else. So to look on the diagram for the last time, I'm sure you're sick of seeing this diagram by now. We are up here finally at stage 4. So what that is we've finally finished adding in stuff from the warehouse. We've exported it now as a PDF or as a DWG file, and I'm going to show you how to do it as a DWG, and then we'll do another video of when you export it as a PDF and you edit it in Illustrator. So we'll just jump right in a wee second, and we'll just show you how to do hatching and annotation and a little bit of line thicknesses as well, all things I'm sure you're very familiar with in AutoCAD already. Okay, so now we're going to show you guys how to do the diagram overlays in Autodesk and AutoCAD. So when I said in the last video that the only export kind, so we'll just go over to export and 2D graphic again. The only export kind that would work would be PDF. I forgot to mention as well that DWG will work fine too. So we're going to do that just now. So we're going to go export and AutoCAD DWG file, and we'll click on export. So basically we decided to show you how to do this in AutoCAD as well, because unlike Illustrator, where more of you might not be familiar with it, we thought most of you will pretty much know how to use AutoCAD, and we're only going to be doing really basic stuff with AutoCAD as well. It's literally editing line thicknesses and doing a few hatches, and that will pretty much be all we need to use in AutoCAD. So we'll just get started with that in a second. Okay, so here we are guys in AutoCAD, and I've just opened up the DWG that we've exported from SketchUp. So here we are, we're in model space, and it's pretty cool because you see it basically, all these lines are now unique lines that we can go in and edit and mess around with. And to draw something like this just in 2D in AutoCAD, that would take you ages, especially something like this car. So it's a really cool way, it's a really quick way of getting a good looking diagram done by exporting the DWG from SketchUp. So if we go over in the bottom to layout 1 into paper space, as we can see here, the line thicknesses, they're all way too thick, okay, from what's been printed from SketchUp, and you can't see any of the details on anything, none of the windowsills or any of the real detail. So what we'll do is the first thing to do, which is normally a good first step when you're doing this sort of thing, is we'll go into model space, select everything, and we'll just change the line thickness down to 0. Right now it's technically not 0. I don't know why AutoCAD does that, it's kind of weird, but that's just like their thinnest line. And as you can see now, it looks 10 times better already now that we can see everything. So just one quick note before we jump further into more AutoCAD stuff is, generally this is not really the way we would recommend you make these sorts of diagrams, because AutoCAD's not really made for this. But we're just showing you it now because it's something that, if you're really feeling you can't get to grips with Illustrator or anything like that, then you still have an option to make a model before your first presentation. But this is really pushing AutoCAD to its limits in terms of making diagrams and stuff here, and this is really the limit of what you can do with it. Whereas if you start the Illustrator stuff, we're only just scratching the surface really with what you can do with that. So in the long run, would definitely recommend learning the Illustrator way. So what we'll do then, first things first, is we're going to outline the building here. We're going to make the outline of the building in a sort of darker line thickness, a thicker line thickness, and that'll be really good because when you look at this image here, yep, it looks good, but we want to really draw the eye to the building itself. So there's a few ways you could do that. You could literally just go around and grab all the lines, that make up the perimeter. But the problem you have there is we're really just wanting to do the perimeter of the building. So where this line goes up and stops here, that's where we want to stop. Whereas if we just selected this line, some of them can go, you know, all the way across, and it just wouldn't work out the best. So one of the probably the quickest way to do it then is if we just do a polyline. Okay, so we'll just start down here, and we're literally just gonna go across the building, and then once we've finished that, we have one big line that we can just select and alter the thickness of. So the second reason why this is a better way to do it, and I'll show you at the end, is if we just selected all the lines around the building, changed the line thicknesses, and then started working on something else, but then looked back and thought, oh well, you know, it would probably be better if the lines were thicker or thinner, then you'd have to select everything again. Whereas doing it this way, you only have to select the one polyline anytime you want to change it, so it's a lot quicker for altering your line thicknesses. So it's pretty straightforward, and I'm assuming you guys know how to do this kind of stuff with polylines in AutoCAD. Where are we here? Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll just end the polyline there, and then we should have, we'll need to add in a little bit we missed there. Okay. Oh, sorry, 1 second. I added that in the wrong way. Okay, there we go. So you can see highlighted in blue there, that's the kind of outline of the building, and then we'll just go up again and we'll put on a different line thickness. So as you can see, I can see this in model space, which you might not be able to, the change of line thickness. If you can't see it, you need to go down into the bottom right here on customization and tick the line weight box there. Then once you've done that, you'll see this little show hide line weight button, and that can be really useful to have that turned on so you can see in model space the line thicknesses. So if we swap back over to layout 1 again, we can see that looks better again now that we can actually see, you know, the outline of the building. I mean, this may be a little bit thick, but we can edit that as we go. But when you look at the image now, you know, your eye is more drawn to the building itself thanks to just kind of outlining it there, and it just makes it a bit clearer to understand the drawing. So what we'll do now is, say you were making a diagram. Well, actually, the first thing we'll do is we're going to make a couple of different diagrams. So instead of loading up this one and highlighting the solar panels and the gardens and this wee box bit here all in the same diagram, it's normally good to just try and show one or maybe two things per diagram. So we're just going to select everything, and we're just going to copy it and move it over. So we'll just put this up here. So that's kind of like our base template. So if we mess up a drawing, we know we still have this guy here, and we can edit on that instead. So let's say our first diagram then will be, we just want to highlight these solar panels so we can talk about the sustainability of the building. We'll go in again and we'll just do the same idea. We'll select polyline and we'll just draw around this solar panel, and we're just going to hatch it. We're just going to basically color it in blue, just to draw emphasis to it. So there we go, polyline is drawn. Now if we went to just hatch this straight away, it wouldn't quite work because there's all the other lines as well. So we need to then, you know, hatch that main section, hatch the sides and all the different faces that make up that panel, which we could do. But a quicker way, if we just undo that, is we select our polyline, right click, and go on isolate. So I don't know if you guys have done isolating objects before, but basically when you hit isolate objects, it just hides everything else in the scene, and you're just left with whatever you've isolated. And then if we go and hatch now, it'll hatch all that in as one solid piece, and that's a much quicker way to do it than hatching each individual part of the solar panel. So just be 1 second, because AutoCAD's being a bit funny. This is another reason why this is not a great idea to do it in AutoCAD, because hatching can be really weird and kind of kill your computer sometimes for no real reason. Okay, so AutoCAD has finally hatched the shape that we've wanted. Now we'll just go up to the top of the screen there, and we'll click on Close Hatch Creation whenever AutoCAD is ready, as the mouse is stuck. Come on. Okay, so we'll click on Close Hatch Creation, and that's that done. So now if you right click again and go on Isolate and then End Object Isolation, and when that finishes calculating, we'll be back with the rest of the scene all built up again. Okay, there we go. So a little problem we have then is we've lost some of the lines within the hatch. So a good way to stop that is we'll click on this hatch that we've made, right click and go on Draw Order and Send to Back. So there we go. So now we have, if we go back on Layout 1, we have our solar panel hatched in. Now a problem we have is that the polyline we've drawn is way too thick. So again, we can just click on that and we'll put it back down. So we could put it at 0, 0, what we've done there, and that looks okay. Or again, if we want to try and draw a little bit of extra emphasis to the solar panels, we could put a slightly thicker line on that, and then it kind of stands out a bit more again from the roof structure. So what we'll do is we'll just copy and paste these guys onto the rest of the solar panels, and they should all be exactly the same size because we were in parallel projection. If they were different sizes, then we'd have to draw them each as we go, but this is fine. And there we go, all in place. And we'll select these all, right click, Draw Order and Send to Back. Okay, cool. So we have our first sort of most of a diagram there. We would then just add some text onto that and maybe an arrow or something pointing at it, and then we could talk about the solar panels there, and you could do that either in paper space or in model space. It's just up to you. And we'll kind of leave the annotation part for the AutoCAD section anyway up to you guys, because I'm sure you all have experience of adding text and leader lines and all that sort of stuff and into AutoCAD. And again, you probably just want to keep it fairly simple, because these diagrams tend to work best when they look simple. So we'll just do another one as well. So we'll work off this standard template that we made over there. So we'll copy that and we'll move it so it's sort of in line with this one. We'll just set it across from it. And this one, say we're highlighting the flat roofed section, and say we're gonna, I don't know, talk about whatever services or we've got in there, and just highlight that as this sort of service zone for the building. I've already drawn another polyline just so we save a bit of time, so we don't have to sit through drawing that again. So again, same process. We're going to right click, and when we have that polyline selected, we hit Isolate Objects. Once we're in that, we can go on Hatch, and again, AutoCAD's going to be really funny and slow, but that's just the way it is hatching in AutoCAD. Okay, there we go. So it tends to work better actually in AutoCAD if you zoom out before you hatch. For some bizarre reason, the hatch will hatch quicker. So we've hatched that. We go right click, isolate, and end object isolation again. And then once we're back onto the main scene, which should load up in a second, we'll just draw this at the back of the stack again. So we'll go on the draw order and send to back. and then that'll be our second diagram done. Again, minus any annotation and stuff, but James will probably show you a wee bit of annotation stuff in Illustrator. And again, the main idea is just to keep it simple and to make sure that it's clear, you know, and don't try anything too fancy. So we'll click on the hatch, right click, draw order, send to back. There we go. And again, we can add some annotation stuff on there, and we'll just do one more. So we'll copy this first one again. So we'll go copy, and again we'll move it and just might as well just keep them in line with these guys. There we go. And now that we've got that, again I've drawn the polyline in advance, so it goes all the way around the garden here, and you know, it can be a bit tedious sometimes having to draw around all these details, but it just needs to be done. And since there's no other sort of lines inside this area, we don't need to isolate it before we hatch, whereas, you know, when we're doing this one, we had to, because otherwise we'd have to hatch this part, then this part, then this part, and you know, and it can take a while depending on what you're hatching. So we're just gonna go and hatch, and we'll just go for a green, and you know, we'll just say for this diagram, you know, this is a we're gonna do a diagram about the garden spaces and stuff, and say how great it is and has tons of garden space or something. So AutoCAD was being funny there, and I had to restart it. So we're just gonna isolate this one actually, because it's just not really behaving with the rest of the objects around it. So we're gonna isolate objects, zoom out a whole bunch again, click on Hatch Creator. We've got the green selected, click on this, and then hopefully in a few seconds it should work. So again, this is another reason why we really shouldn't be using AutoCAD for this kind of work. You know, hatches were, I guess, largely made just to fill in simple rectangles, or you know, a few basic shapes, and to show different hatches for building materials and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's really not made for sort of more artistic stuff like what we're doing here. Again, we're just showing you it in case you're really struggling with the Illustrator stuff and you want to get a diagram done before the presentation. So we can end the object isolation now that it's hatched, and we should be there in a second. There we go. Okay, so now we've got that last one done. So if we go to layout, and let's just make this, for example, an A1 sheet, and we'll just move this up to the middle there, and we'll just drag this across, and we should see them all. There we go. So I mean, this is super basic and very simple what we've shown you guys here, and that's because, you know, there's not really any content for us to show you here. You know, we've not designed this building, it's really just for illustrative purposes. I'm sure you guys will have plenty of things that you'll want to talk about and show for your own buildings, so we're just kind of showing you the tools to, you know, get the diagrams made, not so much the content of the diagrams. But one thing we could do is if we go back to model space, in fact, well, I'll show you from the layout first. We'll just copy this and move it up. So what we could do then, as just an example of organizing the content, is you could start off with a diagram up here, and that's just kind of the overview, and it just highlights the building. And then for some of the other diagrams, then what you could do is instead of having the whole building outline you know, sort of in the heavy lines, you could then just have your just purely what the diagram's showing in the heavy lines. So again, it kind of draws focus more to, you know, this part than the whole building. So again, I guess a clear example would be on this one, where we could take off the thick line around the outside, put that back down to 0, 0, and then just literally have the thick line around this portion. So we'll go for sort of 50 point. So you see that one is more focused on this section here than it is on anything else. So again, it's all just about where you want to draw people's eyes to. And another thing we could do is you could grey out kind of everything else. So everything's, you know, pure white at the moment. If you were to reduce that and make it a kind of off-white, a sort of slightly light grey, that also helps to draw focus somewhere else as well, because our eyes are naturally drawn to that sort of pure white or pure black colours. So in making everything else slightly grey, the eye goes, okay, I want to look at this because this is way more interesting than just some sort of off grey. And again, we could do the same here. We could take the thick borders off the building and put them just around whatever garden patches we're showing. And I think that's everything, guys. So I would definitely still recommend having a look through James's video on Illustrator. It is 10 times better for doing this kind of stuff. It's made to do this kind of stuff, so it is easier, although I'm very well aware it can be quite intimidating sometimes trying to learn some new software. So good luck, guys.